She appeared to us like Deborah the prophetess.
The school teacher from Milwaukee,
I suppose this is what makes a great leader.
who became the Iron Lady of Israel.
A woman of enormous contradictions.
The hope continues on today's 700 Club Interactive. Well, welcome to the show. In the days leading up to Israel's independence, Jewish leader David Ben-Gurion faced opposition on all sides. The Americans refused to support a Jewish state. The Arabs threatened war, and even Ben-Gurion's own cabinet was divided. Israel's only chance for peace with the Arabs now rested on a former schoolteacher from Wisconsin, a woman Ben-Gurion would later call the best man in his cabinet.
Certainly she was one of the founders of Israel, one of the makers of Israel. In many respects, she was one of Ben-Gurion's chief lieutenants. An amazing woman, in many respects, a woman of enormous contradictions. She could be wonderful, she could be charming, she could be charismatic, she could be very friendly and very solicitous. She could be, on the other hand, rigid, inflexible, difficult, opinionated, combative, argumentative. I suppose this is what makes a great leader.
Golda Meir was born in Kiev in 1898. When she was 8 years old, her family moved to America to escape the massacres that ripped through the Russian Empire. They settled in Milwaukee, a city with a thriving Jewish community. But even in America, life wasn't easy.
She did not have a good childhood. She grew up in a house with women. There was no man. Her father went to America a few years before they joined him. And there was enormous amount of bickering and arguments and shouting and yelling. And this taught Golda, first of all, a lot of patience. It also taught her something else. If you can arrange things quietly, do so.
Even at 11, Golda had a gift for politics. When she found out there were children in her school who were too poor to buy textbooks, she decided to help. Golda talked the manager of a local concert hall into letting her use the hall for free. And one night, she and her friends held a fundraiser where Golda pleaded with the audience to help. That night, they raised enough money to buy textbooks for every student at the school.
She was very effective because she spoke from the heart, because she knew how to relate to the people. And turned out she was a fabulous fundraiser, incidentally, all her life.
Young Golda was both ambitious and adventurous, traits that didn't sit well with her parents.
There was a big argument in the family. She wanted to go to high school, and the family said, no, what for? What do you need high school? Find yourself a job. Until the time comes, you'll find the right man to marry and raise a family.
At just 15 years old, Golda took matters into her own hands. She ran away from home and went to live with her sister in Denver. There she learned about Zionism for the first time, and soon the idea of living in the land of Israel consumed her. It was also in Denver that she met her future husband.
In Denver, she met Morris Myerson, who I remember was a very decent man, and they fell in love. He opened to her the world of literature and music and theater, things that she'd never had at home.
After 2 years, Golda returned home to Milwaukee, where she finished school. Then she went to work as a teacher. She also agreed to marry Morris Myerson, whose name she would later change to the more Hebrew-sounding Meir.
Tragedy was that she conditioned the marriage on two things. We're going to immigrate to Israel, we're going to live in a kibbutz. He hated both ideas. He was not a Zionist. And she dragged him basically to Israel.
In 1921, the couple settled here at Kibbutz Merhavia in the Jezreel Valley. Life was hard, but Golda thrived on the physical labor. She picked almonds, planted trees, and became an expert in raising chickens. She also revolutionized the community's kitchen, where the other women refused to work. They felt kitchen work was beneath them and demanded the same jobs the men were doing.
I couldn't understand for the life of me what all the fuss was about. Why is it so much better to work in the barn and feed the cows, rather than in the kitchen feeding your comrades? No one ever answered this question convincingly, so I remained more concerned with the quality of our diet than with the feminine emancipation.
Her husband Morris, however, didn't share her love for life on the kibbutz. He contracted malaria, so Golda agreed to move with him to Jerusalem. To help pay the bills, she took a job in the Jewish labor union and rose quickly through the ranks. But while her career flourished, her marriage fell apart.
They never divorced. They separated. They lived apart. They tried to revive the marriage by having children. That did not exactly work. But they remained very good friends. And he was involved in raising children. And she became involved in politics since around 1922-23. And she was in politics in Israel for 50 years. In the trade union movement, in the Jewish Agency, the government of Israel, Labor Party, one of the founders of Labor Party.
By the mid-1930s, Golda was part of the inner circle of David Ben-Gurion, who would become Israel's first prime minister.
He saw her as one of his trusted lieutenants. They disagreed once over issue of partition, 1937. The British offered some sort of partition. He said, take it. Take what you're offered. There's a chance to save Jews in Germany. She and others said, no, we were promised the whole of the country, let's stick to it. Years later, she had the decency to say we were wrong, and he was right.
After World War II, one of the Jewish Agency's biggest priorities was helping Holocaust survivors get into Palestine, a goal that was blocked by the British at every turn. By the end of 1947, more than 40,000 Jewish refugees were being detained in British camps in Cyprus. Hundreds of infants were not expected to survive the coming winter or the outbreaks of typhus. So Meir went to Cyprus to negotiate their release.
The camps were more depressing than I had expected. At one camp, a few tiny little children came up with a bouquet of paper flowers for me. I've been given a great many bouquets of flowers since then, but I've never been as moved as I was by those flowers presented to me in Cyprus, by children who had probably forgotten, if they ever knew, what real flowers look like.
Golda also requested that in addition to the babies, the camp's older orphans be released as well. At first, the British officer in charge hesitated, then suddenly changed his mind and agreed.
I couldn't understand why he had surrendered so quickly. But later, I learned that he had received a telegram from his superior in Jerusalem. Beware of Mrs. Meyerson. She is a formidable person.
Shortly after Meir's visit, the United Nations voted to divide Palestine into two states, an Arab one and a Jewish one. From that moment, the countdown was on. Within 6 months, the British would leave, the Jews would declare a state, and the Arabs would declare war. Ben-Gurion called a meeting with his top military leaders.
He said to them, we are going to declare the state of Israel. I need from you the list of what weapons you will need because we're going to have a war. And he gave them a couple of hours to come back, and they came with a list. And they gave him a piece of paper. On the piece of paper there was rifles, machine guns, pistols, grenades. So he took the piece of paper, threw it back to them and says, gentlemen, we're going to war. I need a list of how many tanks you need, how many battleships you need, how many planes you need, how many cannons you need. They all looked at each other. They got up, like the teacher just smacked the students there. And they went out and they said, when they got to the corridor, they all say, Ben Gurion ishtager. Ben Gurion went crazy. Crazy? We are talking about pistols, he's talking about battleships. We are talking about bullets, he's talking about cannons. But he knew what he's talking about.
We were, of course, totally unprepared for war. We needed weapons urgently, if we could find anyone willing to sell them to us. But before we could buy anything, we needed money, millions of dollars. And there was only one group of people in the whole world that we had any chance of getting these dollars from: the Jews of America.
Most of the council members thought Ben-Gurion should go to the U.S. to raise funds. But Golda had a different idea.
I will go. I'm fluent in English. And I know how to speak to Americans. And we can't spare Ben-Gurion right now. He is needed here. I can do it. Fine.
She knew exactly what would, I hate to use the term, turn them on. Somebody said she appeared to us like Deborah the prophetess, fighting Israeli. And she was very good in the two languages they understood, Yiddish and English.
The Jewish agency's treasurer was convinced that they wouldn't be able to raise more than 7 or 8 million. But after just 6 weeks, Golda returned from the States with $50 million.
That's 1948 dollars. Today it would be, I don't know, billions of dollars. And that paid for weapons that Israel bought from Czechoslovakia, which helped win the 1948 war. Her fundraising accounted, I imagine, for about a third of the costs of the 48 war. Now, few Israelis remember that. Now, the one who did remember was Ben-Gurion, and he cited this on a number of occasions.
Ben-Gurion soon had another job for Golda, a diplomatic visit to King Abdullah of Jordan. She had already had one secret meeting with Abdullah 7 months earlier. At the time, he had promised her that he would not go to war against the Jews.
There were reports that despite his promise to me, Abdullah was about to join the Arab League. Was this indeed so? I asked him in a message. The reply from a man was swift and negative. He asked me to remember 3 things: that he was a Bedouin and therefore a man of honor, that he was a king and therefore doubly an honorable man, and finally, that he would never break a promise made to a woman. But we all knew differently.
The British informed us that it would be a good idea if somebody goes and talks to Abdullah, because he's had a change of heart.
Golda requested another meeting. This time, Abdullah insisted that she go to Oman, adding that he would take no responsibility for her safety.
She was dressed up as an Arab woman. Among those who dressed her up was my mother. Went to Haifa and drove with one man to Jordan. Changed cars near the border, in a car driven by one of the retainers of the king, and they went to Amman. This is 4 days before independence. She was a very brave woman in this respect. Abdullah was very upset. He didn't like the idea of the Jews sending a woman. And later on, he argued he didn't understand. She understood very well.
Your Majesty.
Mrs. Mercer. Please sit down.
Thank you. Your Majesty, have you broken your promise to me after all?
When I made that promise, I thought I was in control of my own destiny. Now, I'm only one of 5 nations. Why are you in such a hurry to proclaim your state? What is the rush?
Well, Your Majesty, we've waited 2,000 years for a state. I hardly think that can be described as a hurry. Don't you understand that we are your only allies in the region?
What can I do? It's not up to me.
Well, you must know that if war is forced upon us, we will fight. And we will win.
Why don't you wait a few years? Drop your demands for statehood. I will take over the whole region, and you'll be represented in my parliament. I will treat you very well, and there will be no war.
You know how hard we've worked. Do you think we did all that just for a seat in a foreign parliament? Your Majesty, if you can offer us nothing more than that, then there will be war. And we will win it.
And perhaps we can meet again after the war.
Shalom.
Assalamu alaikum.
I never saw Abdallah again. There was no doubt left in my mind that he would wage war on us. My heart sank at the thought of the news I would have to bring back to Tel Aviv. The next morning, there was a meeting, and I knew that Ben-Gurion would be there. When I entered the room, he lifted his head and looked at me. I sat down and scribbled a note. It didn't work, I wrote. There will be war. Within 2 days, the final decision had to be made. Ben-Gurion called in 2 Haganah leaders for a final military assessment. Their answers were virtually identical and terrifying.
What is the current strength of the Haganah?
We have 35,000 trained fighters, but less than 20,000 of them are fully armed. And as of right now, the tanks and planes we purchased have still not arrived.
And the Arabs?
If Abdullah added his army, they can be 100,000.
And all of them armed and trained by the British. Your assessment?
We can only be sure of 2 things. On May 15, the British will pull out and the Arabs will invade.
And then?
The best thing I can tell you is we have a 50-50 chance. We are as likely to win as to lose.
On that bright note, it was decided by a vote of 6-4. On Friday, May 14, 1948, the Jewish state would be declared. Israel would be born with 5 Arab armies surrounding it, poised for attack.
Well, if you've enjoyed this series, keep watching. All next week, we'll be sharing more miraculous stories of the founding of the State of Israel. And if you missed an episode or you want to see a story again, all you have to do is go to 700clubinteractive.com, and we'd love to have you share these stories with your friends. If you like your own copy of the entire series, the documentary is available on DVD, or you can choose Blu-ray, either one, for a donation of $10. If you want one, just order it right now. Call us, 888-777-1999. Just ask for the Hope. Or you can go to the website, 700clubinteractive.com. There's a place you can click and order your copy or multiple copies if you want to give them away. Do it now. Call us, 888-777-1999. Well, coming up, a Holocaust survivor who's now fighting a different war. Watch her win the battle up next. Sophia Feldman is one of thousands of Holocaust survivors living in Israel today. She's also a cancer survivor. Sophia may live by herself, but thanks to Operation Blessing, she's never alone.
Sophia Feldman is a Holocaust survivor who lives alone in Beit Shemesh, Israel. When she was a little girl, she was forced to flee her home in Kiev, Ukraine, as Nazi warplanes destroyed the city.
I could hear the bombs going off as they hit the buildings. It was very close. I remember the smell of the homes burning as my mother carried me down to the bomb shelter.
As the German front approached, Sophia's uncle, a soldier, smuggled her and her mother onto a train car bound for Siberia. The rest of Sophia's family would be slaughtered with 30,000 other Jews in the massacre at Babi Yar.
My uncle was a beautiful man. I loved him very much. We would have been killed with the rest in Babi Yar if he had not rescued us.
Years after the war, Sophia moved to Israel by herself with nothing but a spoon and a small metal bowl. She built a good life for herself, but her life changed drastically after she underwent cancer surgery.
I lost so much weight, nearly 50 pounds. And a lymph node in my arm was damaged, so now my arm is twice the size of the other. It's very painful.
Operation Blessing found out that Sophia was making long trips a few times each week to get treatment for her arm.
It was very difficult for me, going into hospital so many times. I was always tired.
So we bought Sophia a machine she can use for the same treatment right in her own home. And we regularly take her the prescribed food she needs to regain weight.
The machine helps me so much because it massages my arm and relieves the pressure. And now I don't have to go all the way to the hospital. I was very excited to see the help and love from Operation Blessing. It's miraculous.
Thanks to Operation Blessing, Sophia not only got the food and medical help she needed, she also found new friends.
Whenever I feel alone, Operation Blessing shows up, and I'm not alone anymore. They're my family. I see what Operation Blessing is doing and the Christian people behind it, and it's a miracle. Spasiba does not just mean thank you in Russian. It actually means may God save you. So I say to all of you, Spasiba.
We want to be a blessing to the people of Israel, and if you want to join in that, all you have to do is give to Operation Blessing Israel, and there's a place on our website where we'll take you over to ob.org, and if you want to designate your giving to help people in Israel, you can do that. Or you can join the 700 Club. 700 Club is $20 a month, 65 cents a day, and you join with tens of thousands of people who want to make a difference in today's world, who want to be a part of helping people, whether it's in Israel or around the world. So if you want to be a part of that, give us a call, 888-777-1999, or just log on to 700clubinteractive.com. Just say, yes, I want to be a part of it. Well, we asked people on Facebook if they had any questions about Israel and her people, and then Alfred wrote in, "Today we believe in Jesus and we worship him because he is God. What will happen to Jews that have not given their lives to Jesus Christ? Are they automatically saved because they are the people of God?" Well, Alfred, that's a question for the ages, and it's one that the church has wrestled with, and I think has oftentimes gotten it wrong, where They refer to the Jews as Christ killers and things of that nature, that they're banished. On the Jewish side, you can read in the Talmud that they believe Jesus is a heretic and that he has been assigned a very special place in hell where he is being boiled in excrement. So there are errors on both sides. Here's what the Apostle Paul said. Can a nation be saved in a day? And he's talking about a people. Can they be saved in a day? And his response was, yes, they can. And with God, all things are possible. I think as Christians, we need to look on the Jewish people as our elder brothers in the faith. To them were given the oracles of God. And the Apostle Paul wrote that. He said we need to respect them because God gave them the oracles. So whether you're looking at the Old Testament or the New Testament, all the writers of the New Testament, they were all Jewish, including Luke. Luke was with Paul in the temple. So has God left the covenant that he made with Abraham? No. Has he left the covenant he made with Moses on Mount Sinai? No. Can you rely on your Jewish just by birth? I think the answer within Judaism is no. That are you observant of the Torah? Are you meditating on his law day and night? Do you seek him? Do you love him with all of your heart? Do you love your neighbor as yourself? These are commandments for all of us, Christian or Jewish, to look at and say, are we observing what we say we believe? Keep in mind what Jesus said at the end. He said, away from me, you lawless ones. Those are the ones who aren't observant, that don't observe any form of commandment in their lives. So we all need to work out our own salvation with fear and trembling. We leave with this word from Psalm 20. May he grant your heart's desires and make all your plans succeed. God bless you. We'll see you again.